The grand arena of Siror shook with thunderous applause. More than 100,000 spectators filled the colossal structure, their voices echoing beneath the crystal dome that stretched high into the sky. Banners from hundreds of worlds fluttered in the artificial wind, while holographic displays projected the faces of the competitors for all to see. Today was no ordinary tournament. Today was no ordinary tournament. Today was no ordinary tournament. A warrior whose sole purpose would be to protect her life. A champion strong enough to stand against assassins, armies, and anything else the galaxy could unleash. On the arena floor, 200 warriors stood in perfect formation. They represented dozens of species from across known space. Some were towering giants covered in battle scars. Others wore armor forged from rare metals worth entire planets. Many carried weapons that had earned legendary reputations in 100 wars. They looked exactly as champions were supposed to look. Powerful, fearsome, unstoppable. Among them stood 3 humans. 2 immediately attracted attention. They were massive soldiers wearing advanced combat armor, carrying weapons that looked capable of destroying vehicles. The crowd respected them. They looked dangerous. The 3rd human attracted almost no attention at all. His name was Kang Duan. He wore simple gray clothing, no armor, no visible weapons, no trophies, no decorations, nothing that suggested he belonged among the greatest warriors in the galaxy. He simply stood there with his hands behind his back, calm, silent, watching. While other contestants roared to impress the crowd or flexed their muscles for the cameras, Duan seemed completely uninterested, as if he were waiting for something, or someone. High above the arena, Queen Alara sat upon her silver throne. Her expression remained unreadable as she observed the contestants below. Beside her stood Lord Vexer, chief advisor to the crown. He gestured toward the competitors with confidence. "Your Majesty, the finest warriors in the galaxy stand before you." A holographic image appeared. The Krillix champion has survived 30 death matches. Another appeared. The Vorten Prince has never lost a recorded duel. A third. The Ironclaw mercenary has defeated 6 military commanders in single combat. Vexer smiled. Surely one of these warriors deserves the honor of becoming your guardian. Queen Alara remained silent. Her gaze drifted across the arena. Unlike most species, the Vorens possessed a rare gift. They could sense thoughts. Not every detail, not every memory, but enough to understand a person's true nature. She focused her mind. Instantly, emotions flooded toward her. Pride, greed, ambition, arrogance. One by one, she examined the warriors. The Krillix champion dreamed of fame. The Vorten Prince imagined himself standing beside a queen. Several contestants secretly calculated how much power they could gain from the position. Others imagined future victories, future rewards, future glory. Warriors, but not protectors. Ilara frowned slightly. Then her attention shifted toward the quiet human, Kang Duan. His thoughts were different, unexpectedly different. There was no hunger for power, no fantasies of wealth, no desire for recognition, only observation, calculation, awareness. The human was studying every entrance, every exit, every guard position, every elevated platform, every possible threat. Even now, while standing among hundreds of competitors, he wasn't thinking about winning, he was thinking about protecting. For the first time that day, Alara became interested. "Who is that human?" she asked. Vexer looked down and frowned. "Him?" The advisor checked his tablet. Kang Duan, former military officer from Earth. His confusion was obvious. Nothing remarkable in his records. The queen continued watching. "No." Her eyes narrowed. "I think there is." At that exact moment, something unexpected happened. A small maintenance drone malfunctioned near the royal balcony. Most people ignored it. The machine was harmless. But before anyone else could react, Kang Duan moved. Just one step. A tiny movement. Yet his eyes locked onto the drone instantly. He had noticed it before the security guards. Before the technicians, before anyone, the drone sparked and crashed harmlessly into a barrier. The crowd barely noticed, but Queen Alara did, and so did Vexor. The advisor frowned. Coincidence? Perhaps, Alara replied, yet she continued watching the human. Because something about him felt dangerous. Not in the way of a berserker, not in the way of a warrior seeking battle. Something far more unsettling. The kind of danger that remained invisible until it was too late. Around them, the crowd cheered as the first combat trials prepared to begin. The strongest warriors in the galaxy stretched their muscles and tightened their grips on their weapons. They believed the tournament would be decided by strength. They were wrong. Because the most dangerous person in the arena was the man nobody was paying attention to. And Kang Dewan preferred it that way. That simple difference was about to change her life forever. The trade negotiations between Earth and Valyria had gone poorly. The Valyrians wanted resources that Earth was unwilling to give up so easily. Tensions rose throughout the day, and by evening, both sides seemed ready to walk away from any agreement. War was not likely, but the relationship would be damaged for years. Empress Kalira raised her hand, and the room fell silent. Her telepathic voice reached every Valyrian mind present, though the human diplomat could only see her lips moving. "I have a solution," she announced. "A way to bond our two peoples and ensure peace between our worlds." Tammin stepped forward, curious. His translator device picked up her words in his language. "Your Majesty, Earth would welcome any path to friendship with Valyria." The Empress smiled, but there was something cold in her expression. "I offer you my daughter, Princess Erin, as your bride. This marriage will seal our alliance and show the galaxy that Valyria and Earth stand together." The Valyrian court erupted in barely concealed laughter. Their telepathic amusement was hidden from the human, but Erin felt every mocking thought. They all knew the truth. The Empress was not honoring Earth. She was insulting them by giving away a defective princess, and she was ridding herself of an embarrassing daughter at the same time. Erin wanted to disappear into the floor. She knew what this meant. Her mother was telling the entire court that Erin was so worthless that she could be thrown away to a species they considered primitive. Humans lived such short lives compared to Valyrians. They had no telepathic abilities. They were seen as clever but ultimately inferior. Tammin looked surprised. He glanced at Erin for the first time. She kept her eyes down, unable to meet his gaze. He did not see mockery in this offer. He saw a chance for peace, and he saw a woman who looked deeply unhappy. "Your Majesty," Tammin said carefully, "this is an unexpected honor. But should the princess not have a say in this decision?" The Empress waved her hand dismissively. "My daughter understands her duty. She accepts this arrangement." Erin said nothing. What could she say? Refusing would bring more shame to herself and might start a conflict. Accepting meant leaving everything she knew to live among strangers. But perhaps living among strangers would be better than living among people who saw her as broken. Tammin watched Erin closely. He saw the tension in her shoulders, the way she held herself, as if trying to take up less space. Something about the situation felt wrong to him. But he understood politics. Sometimes individuals had to sacrifice for the greater good. "Then I accept with gratitude," Tammin said, bowing to the Empress. "I will do my best to make Princess Erin happy." The court members continued their silent laughter. They knew the truth. An infertile princess and a human diplomat. It was the perfect joke. Neither would find happiness. But at least the Valyrian Empire would have peace with Earth. And the Empress would no longer have to look at the daughter who had disappointed her. Erin finally raised her eyes and looked at Tammin. He smiled at her gently, trying to offer some comfort. She did not smile back. She simply nodded once, accepting her fate. The arrangements were made quickly. Within a week, Erin would leave Valyria forever and travel to the human diplomatic station. She would become a bride to a man she did not know, representing a people who had cast her aside. As the court session ended and people began to leave, Erin stood alone in the hall. Her sister walked past without speaking. Her mother had already left through the royal doors. The other court members avoided her eyes. She was already gone in their minds. She was already forgotten. Tommen remained in the hall, speaking with his assistant about preparations. He looked over at Erin once more. Their eyes met across the empty space. In that moment, something passed between them. Not understanding, not yet, but perhaps the smallest seed of connection. Erin turned and walked away, her footsteps echoing in the crystalline hall. She was leaving behind everything she knew, but deep inside, a small part of her wondered if perhaps this exile might be a kind of freedom. The human diplomatic station was nothing like the crystal palaces of Valyria. The walls were made of metal and composite materials, painted in soft colors that seemed strange to Erin's eyes. Everything was smaller, more compact, designed for efficiency rather than beauty. But it was also warmer somehow, in ways she had not expected. Tammin met her at the docking bay when her transport arrived. He wore casual clothes instead of his formal diplomatic attire. He smiled and offered to carry her bags, a gesture that confused her. On Valaria, servants carried things. Important people never touched luggage. "Welcome," he said simply. "I hope you will be comfortable here. I know this must be difficult for you." Erin nodded, but said nothing. She had prepared herself for demands, for coldness, for disappointment when he realized she could not give him children. She had not prepared herself for kindness. He showed her to her quarters. She expected to see his room, the place where she would be required to stay as his wife. Instead, he opened the door to a separate apartment, with its own bedroom, living space, and bathroom. "This is your space," Tammin explained. "I live in the next section over. I thought you might want privacy while you adjust to everything. There is no rush for anything. We can take as much time as you need." Erin stared at him. "You do not expect me to share your quarters." "Not unless you want to," he said. "I thought we should get to know each other first as people, not just as a political arrangement." This was so different from what she had imagined that she did not know how to respond. On Valyria, marriages were duties. Couples lived together immediately and worked to produce children as quickly as possible. Privacy and personal choice were not part of the equation. Over the following days, Erin began to explore the station. Tammin had asked a colleague to help her adjust. Her name was Hannah, and she worked as a xenobiologist studying different alien species. Hannah was enthusiastic and warm, asking Erin questions about Valyrian culture with genuine curiosity rather than judgment. "So, your skin changes color based on your emotions?" Hannah asked one day as they sat in the station's garden area. "That is fascinating. Humans have to guess what others are feeling most of the time." "Valyrians also use telepathy," Erin explained. "We can sense the emotions and thoughts of others nearby, but my telepathic abilities are weak. It is another way I am defective." Hannah frowned. "That word defective. I do not like it. You are different maybe, but different is not the same as broken." Erin had heard this idea before, but never from someone who seemed to truly believe it. On Valyria, difference was weakness. Conformity to the ideal was everything. Tammin joined them for meals several times a week. He never pushed Erin to talk, but he listened carefully when she did. He told her about his own life, about losing his parents when he was young and having to build his career through hard work rather than family connections. "I understand what it feels like to be seen as less than others," he said one evening. "When I first joined the diplomatic corps, many people thought I did not belong there. They said I was too young, too inexperienced, from the wrong background. But I proved them wrong by doing the work and being myself." Erin found herself sharing things she had never told anyone. She talked about the loneliness of being invisible in her own family. She described the day the physicians told her she was infertile, and how her mother had looked at her with such disappointment. "They measured my telepathic signature," she explained. "They said my body could not generate the proper embryonic resonance. Without it, Valyrian conception is impossible." Tammin listened thoughtfully. Medical science is always learning new things. What is impossible today might be possible tomorrow. But even if it is not, your value is not determined by whether you can have children. You are valuable because you are you. These words struck something deep inside Erin. No one had ever said anything like that to her before. On Valaria, value came from what you could do for the Empire, for the bloodline, for the future. Personal worth was not a concept that existed. Weeks turned into months. Erin began to relax on the station. She made friends with other humans. Giwan, a security officer, taught her how to play card games. Me, a cultural liaison, shared human music with her. These people welcomed her, without expecting anything in return. One evening, Tammin invited Erin to watch the stars from the observation deck. They sat together in comfortable silence, looking out at the galaxy beyond the windows. "Are you happy here?" Tammin asked softly. I know this was not your choice. If you want to leave to go somewhere else, I will help you. You are not trapped. Aaron turned to look at him, surprised again. You would let me go? Of course, he said. You are not my possession. You are a person with your own will. I would rather you stay because you want to, not because you have to. Something shifted in Erin's chest. She realized that what she felt for this man was not obligation or duty. It was something warmer, something that grew from genuine care and respect. She reached out and took his hand, a gesture that made him smile. I want to stay, she said quietly. For the first time in my life, I feel like I am seen, really seen. Not as a failed princess or a political tool, just as Erin Tammen squeezed her hand gently. Then stay as long as you wish. I am glad you are here. They sat together under the stars, two people from different worlds finding connection in unexpected places. Erin did not know what the future would hold. But for the first time since childhood, she felt something she had almost forgotten. She felt hope. 6 months had passed since Erin arrived at the human station. Her relationship with Tammen had grown slowly, naturally, like a plant reaching towards sunlight. They had moved beyond friendship into something deeper. They shared quarters now, not because of duty, but because they wanted to be near each other. Erin woke one morning feeling strange. Her stomach churned, and waves of dizziness washed over her. She tried to stand, but had to sit back down on the bed. Tammen noticed immediately and brought her water. You should see a doctor, he said, concerned. This is the 3rd morning you have felt sick. Erin dismissed the idea at first. Valyrians rarely got sick, and she assumed it was just stress or something she ate. But when the symptoms continued for another week, Tammen insisted. He contacted Hannah, who worked in the medical research division. Hannah ran a series of tests in the station's medical bay. She drew blood samples, performed scans, and checked all of Erin's vital signs. As she worked, Erin noticed her friend's expression changing from professional concern to complete shock. Erin, Hannah said slowly, looking at her scanner readings again. I need you to stay calm, but these results show something impossible. What is it? Erin asked, fear creeping into her voice. Am I dying? No, Hannah said, a smile breaking across her face. You pregnant? The room seemed to spin. Erin gripped the edge of the medical table. That cannot be true. I am infertile. The Valyrian physicians tested me many times. There must be an error with your equipment. Hannah shook her head and showed our in the scan. There is no error. Look, this is a developing embryo, about 7 weeks along, based on the growth rate. Tammen had been waiting outside. When Hannah called him in and explained the situation, he looked just as stunned as Erin. He sat down heavily in a chair processing the information. How is this possible? He asked. I do not understand. Hannah pulled up several screens of data. I have been researching this for the past hour. Valyrian physicians test for telepathic embryonic signatures. They measure whether a woman's body can generate the proper psychic resonance needed for Valyrian conception. Erin cannot generate that signature, so they declared her infertile. But Erin prompted her heart pounding. But human reproduction works differently, Hannah continued. We do not rely on telepathic compatibility. Our conception is purely biochemical. When I looked at your cellular structure, I found something fascinating. Valian and human biology are compatible at a genetic level. It is rare, but it can happen. Your body could not support a Valian pregnancy, but it can support a hybrid pregnancy. Erin put her hand on her stomach, unable to believe it. A child. She was going to have a child. Something she had been told was impossible was happening inside her body right now. Tammen moved to sit beside her, taking her hand. Are you all right? This is a lot to process. Tears ran down Erin's face, making her crystalline skin shimmer. I never thought I would be a mother. They told me I was broken, that my body was wrong, but I am not broken. I just needed someone different. They held each other for a long moment, letting the reality sink in. But as the initial shock faded, worry began to creep in. Hannah voiced what they were all thinking. This is wonderful news, but we have a problem, she said seriously. When the Valyrian Empire finds out about this pregnancy, there will be consequences. They gave you to Tammen because they thought nothing would come of it. A hybrid child changes everything. Tammen nodded grimly. The Galactic Council has strict laws about hybrid offspring. Some species see them as abominations. Others see them as political assets. Either way, they will want to control what happens here. What do we do? Aaron asked, fear replacing her joy. Hana thought for a moment. We keep this secret as long as possible. The pregnancy will take about 8 months based on the development rate. We need to buy time until you can safely deliver. After that, we figure out the next steps. Over the following weeks, they worked to hide the pregnancy. Erin stopped attending public functions. When she had to appear on video calls, she wore loose clothing and positioned the camera carefully. Jiwan, the security officer, helped limit who had access to their living quarters. As the pregnancy progressed, Erin experienced changes she had never imagined. Her skin's color pattern shifted in new ways. Her weak telepathic ability seemed to strengthen slightly. Human doctors monitored her closely, amazed by what they observed. The baby was developing both Valion and human traits. Scans showed telepathic nodes forming in the brain, alongside standard human neural structures. The child would be something entirely new, belonging to both worlds. Tammin talked to the baby every night, pressing his hand against Aaron's growing belly. He told stories about Earth and Valyria, promising to show their child both worlds. Aaron recorded messages too, speaking in both Valyrian and Korean languages. You will be loved, she whispered. Not for what you represent, but for who you are. I promise you that. But as her due date approached, the situation became more complicated. Valyrian representatives at the Galactic Council began asking questions. Why had Princess Erin stopped making public appearances? Why was she avoiding diplomatic functions? Empress Kalira sent a message demanding to know her daughter's status. The tone was cold and formal, showing no motherly concern. She wanted to ensure that her throwaway daughter was not causing problems. Tammin and his team had to carefully craft responses that were not quite lies, but avoided the truth. They said Erin was adjusting to human culture and needed privacy. They claimed she was studying human customs to better serve as a bridge between their peoples. These excuses bought them time, but everyone knew the truth could not stay hidden forever. The Valyrian court had spies everywhere. Eventually, someone would discover what was happening. On a quiet evening in their quarters, Erin sat with Tammin, watching their baby move on the medical scanner. The child was strong and healthy, growing perfectly. They will come for us eventually, Erin said softly. When they find out, they will not let this go. Tammin wrapped his arm around her shoulders. Then we will face them together. This child is ours. No one will take that away from us. Erin leaned against him, drawing strength from his certainty. She had spent her whole life being powerless, letting others make decisions for her. But not anymore. She was about to become a mother, and she would protect her child with everything she had. The small human station became a fortress of protection around Erin as her pregnancy advanced. Every person who knew the secret worked to guard it carefully. The medical staff who monitored her health signed agreements to keep the information private. Friends like Jiwan and Minji became constant presences, helping with everything from meal preparation to security sweeps. Erin's body continued to change in fascinating ways. Her crystalline skin developed new patterns that seemed to pulse gently with the baby's heartbeat. The doctor said it was a connection forming between mother and child, something that combined Valyrian telepathic bonding with human biological attachment. Hana visited almost daily to run tests and monitor their progress. She was documenting everything, fascinated by the biological adaptations happening in real time. This is remarkable, she said during one examination. Your body is adapting to support both Valian and human developmental needs. The baby is developing telepathic nodes that look Valian, but also human neural structures for processing emotions and logic differently. What does that mean for the child? Erin asked, her hand resting protectively on her belly. It means your baby will be unique, Hana explained, able to sense thoughts like Valyrians, but also able to process emotions and experiences like humans, the best of both worlds. Tammin sat beside Erin, holding her other hand. Our child will be extraordinary. As the months passed, Erin found herself thinking about the future constantly. She recorded messages for the baby almost every night, stories about both cultures and promises about the life they would build together. On Valyria, there are caves made entirely of crystal, she whispered to her belly one evening. The light passes through them and creates rainbows that fill entire rooms. On Earth, there are forests so green and full of life that the air smells like growth itself. You will know both places. You will belong to both worlds. Mi taught Erin about human parenting traditions. She brought books and videos showing how humans raise their children, with emphasis on individual development and emotional support. It was so different from Valyrian methods which focused on duty and telepathic training from birth. Humans believe each child is unique. Imji explained, "We do not expect them all to be the same or to fit into specific roles. We let them discover who they are." This idea amazed Eren. On Valyria, children were shaped to serve the Empire's needs. Their individual desires mattered less than their contribution to society. But human parents seemed to celebrate difference and encourage personal growth. However, as Eren entered her 7th month, the protective bubble around them began to crack. Valyrian spies at the Galactic Council had grown suspicious. Too many questions about Princess Eren went unanswered. Too many diplomatic functions happened without her presence. One morning, Jishuan rushed into their quarters with urgent news. "We have a problem. The Valyrian Empire is sending an envoy to the station. They say it is a courtesy visit to check on the princess's well-being, but we all know what it really is." Tammin stood immediately. "When do they arrive?" 3 days, John said. "We need a plan." The group gathered in Tammin's office to strategize. Eren sat heavily in a chair, her pregnancy now impossible to hide under normal circumstances. They needed a way to keep the envoy from seeing her condition. "Can we say she is sick?" Munji suggested that she cannot receive visitors. Hana shook her head. "They will demand to see medical records. Valyrian physicians would review everything we have. What if she is not here?" Chiwan offered. "What if she went on a diplomatic trip to another station?" Tommen considered this. That could work, but the envoy will want proof of where she went and why. We would need documentation, travel records, everything. They worked for 2 days straight creating a false trail. They generated travel documents showing Eren had visited a cultural exchange station near the outer colonies. They created video logs and correspondence to support the story. Friends at other stations agreed to back up their claims if contacted. When the Valyrian envoy arrived, Tammin met them with professional courtesy. The lead envoy was a stern woman named Kyra, whose crystalline skin glowed with the bright blue of high nobility. She looked at Tammin with barely concealed contempt. "Ambassador Tammin," she said coldly, "I am here to see Princess Eren. It has been too long since the Empress received word from her daughter. Princess Eren is currently engaged in cultural exchange activities," Tammin explained smoothly. "She traveled to Station 14 to study their art programs. She wanted to better understand human creative expression." Kira's eyes narrowed. "The princess left without informing her family. She sent messages," Tammin replied, producing the fabricated correspondence. "Perhaps they were delayed in reaching Valyria." The envoy studied the documents with suspicious eyes. She demanded to see Eren's quarters, to review station records, to interview staff members. Jishuan and Mishi had prepared everyone carefully. Every person she spoke to told the same story, showing just enough detail to be believable without seeming rehearsed. Throughout the inspection, Eren hid in a secure medical facility in a restricted section of the station. Only Hana and 2 trusted doctors knew she was there. She spent 3 anxious days waiting, feeling her baby move inside her, and praying their deception would hold. Finally, Kira prepared to leave. She stood in the docking bay with Tammin, her expression still doubtful. "Tell Princess Eren that her mother expects a personal communication soon," Kira said. "The Empress is not pleased with her daughter's silence. I will deliver the message Tammin promised." After the envoy ship departed, everyone breathed easier, but they all knew this was temporary. They had bought time, but not much. Soon Eren would give birth, and then the truth would be impossible to hide. That night, Eren and Tammin lay together in their quarters. Her belly was large now, the baby active and strong. They could see movements rippling across her skin. "We cannot run from this forever," Eren said quietly. "Eventually, we will have to face my people." Tammin stroked her hair gently. "I know, but we will face them when we are ready, not before. And we will face them together." Eren placed his hand on her belly, letting him feel their daughter moving. "She is strong. I can feel it. She will need that strength." "She has you as a mother," Tammin said. "That gives her everything she needs." As they drifted to sleep, neither knew that their time of hiding was almost over. The baby would arrive soon, and with her arrival, everything would change. The crisis came without warning, as they often do. A diplomatic emergency pulled most of the station's personnel to an urgent meeting with visiting ambassadors from 3 different worlds. Trade disputes threatened to escalate into conflicts, and every available diplomat was needed. Tammin was torn between duty and family. Erin was now in her final week of pregnancy, and he did not want to leave her side. But the situation required his expertise, and delaying could mean serious consequences for Earth's relationships with multiple species. Go, Erin told him firmly. Hana and the medical team are here. I will be fine for a few hours. He kissed her forehead reluctantly. Call me immediately if anything changes. I do not care what is happening in that meeting. You and the baby come first. 2 hours after Tammin left, Erin's water broke. The contractions started suddenly and intensely, far more painful than the medical simulations had suggested. She managed to contact Hannah, who rushed to their quarters with 2 doctors. They moved Erin to the secure medical facility quickly. Hannah tried to reach Tammin, but the diplomatic meeting was in a communications blackout for security reasons. They were on their own. Labor progressed faster than expected. The doctors had studied hybrid birth scenarios, but theory and practice were very different things. Erin's Valyrian physiology meant she experienced telepathic pain alongside physical pain. Every contraction sent waves of sensation through her mind, as well as her body. You are doing wonderfully, Hannah encouraged, holding Erin's hand. Just breathe through it. Hours passed in a blur of pain and effort. Erin drew on every bit of Valyrian mental discipline she possessed, using meditation techniques her tutors had taught her as a child. But she also drew on something deeper, something Tammin had taught her. She thought about love, about the family she was creating, about the beautiful future waiting beyond this moment of struggle. As night fell on the station, Erin gave one final push. The baby emerged into the world crying lustily, her voice strong and clear. The medical team worked quickly, checking her vital signs and cleaning her carefully. When they placed the baby in Erin's arms, she looked down at her daughter and felt her heart expand with love, so powerful it made her previous life seem empty by comparison. The baby was perfect. Her skin showed crystalline patterns beneath a human tone, creating an effect like light shining through colored glass. Her eyes opened, revealing irises that shifted colors with her emotions, blue to green to gold. Hello, little one, Erin whispered, tears streaming down her face. I am your mother. I have waited my whole life to meet you. The baby calmed at her voice, seeming to recognize the sound she had heard from inside the womb. Anna smiled, her own eyes wet with emotion. Have you chosen a name? She asked. Erin had discussed names with Tammin for months. They wanted something that honored both cultures, but also represented new beginnings. Sarah, she said softly. It means new beginning in Korean, and in Valyrian it means starlight. At that moment, Tammin burst through the door, his formal diplomatic clothes disheveled from running. He had left the meeting the moment communications were restored, and he received Hannah's messages. I am sorry, he said breathlessly. I tried to get here sooner. Erin smiled at him through her tears. Come meet your daughter. Tammin approached slowly, almost reverently. When he looked down at Sarah, his face transformed with wonder and love. He gently touched her tiny hand, and the baby's fingers wrapped around his thumb with surprising strength. She is perfect, he whispered. Hello, Sarah. I am your father. The medical scans confirmed what they could see. Sarah possessed both telepathic nodes and advanced human neural development. Her genetic structure combined the best traits of both species. She was healthy, strong, and absolutely unique in the galaxy. They spent the night in the medical facility, a small family cocooned in their private joy. But morning brought reality crashing back. News of the birth could not be contained. Medical staff talked. Word spread through the station, and within 24 hours, the information reached the Galactic Council. The first message came from Earth's government congratulating Tammin, but also warning him that the situation had become politically complicated. Multiple species were interested in this unprecedented hybrid birth. The second message came from Valyria. Empress Kira's words were cold and commanding. My daughter will return home immediately with the child. This matter requires the attention of the royal family. Tammin read the message aloud to Oren. She held Sarah close, feeling protective fury rise inside her. She wants to take our daughter. She wants to study her, to use her as some kind of political tool. She cannot take Sarah unless we let her, Tammin said firmly. But we need to respond carefully. Refusing outright could lead to serious consequences. Juan entered the room with more news. The Galactic Council wants a formal inquiry into the circumstances of the pregnancy and birth. Several member species are claiming this violates hybrid reproduction protocols. Hana shook her head angrily. There were no violations. Aaron and Tammin are married. The pregnancy was natural. What protocols could this possibly violate? Fear, Minji said quietly. They are afraid of what Sarah represents. Change. Something new that they cannot control or predict. Aaron looked down at her sleeping daughter. Sarah's skin patterns shifted gently with her dreams, creating soft patterns of light. She was so innocent, so unaware of the storm gathering around her existence. We cannot hide anymore, Aaron said, her voice growing stronger. They know about Sarah now. Running or hiding will only make us look guilty of something. Tammin nodded slowly. What do you suggest? Aaron met his eyes, and he saw a determination there that had not existed when she first arrived at the station. Motherhood had transformed her from someone who accepted her fate to someone who would fight for what mattered. We go to Valyria, she said firmly. We face my mother in the court. But we do not go in shame. We go with our heads high as a family. We show them that their judgment of me was wrong. We show them that Sarah is not a mistake or a problem. She is a miracle. Tammin took her hand. That will be dangerous. Your people may not react well. I know, Aaron said. But I am done being afraid. I am done letting others decide my worth. I am a mother now, and I will protect my daughter by showing the galaxy that she deserves to exist, to be celebrated, not hidden away. She looked at their friends gathered around them. Will you come with us? Without hesitation, all of them agreed. Hana, Jiwan, and me would accompany them to Valyria as witnesses and support. Together, they would face whatever came next. As Aaron held Sarah close, she felt something she had never experienced on her home world. She felt powerful, not because of telepathic ability or royal blood, but because she had something worth fighting for. She had love, family, and purpose. The journey ahead would be difficult, but for the first time in her life, Aaron was ready to fight. The journey to Valyria took 3 days by diplomatic transport. Aaron spent much of the time caring for Sarah, feeding her, and marveling at every small movement and sound. The baby was remarkably calm, as if she sensed the importance of the journey ahead. Tommen used the travel time to prepare. He reviewed Valyrian court protocols, studied diplomatic precedents, and consulted with Earth's government about how to handle the situation. His superiors were nervous. This could either strengthen relations between Earth and Valyria or destroy them completely. Hana ran constant medical checks on both Aaron and Sarah, documenting everything. If they question Sarah's health or development, we need evidence that she is thriving, she explained. Facts are harder to argue against than opinions. Giwan worked on security arrangements. Valyria was not technically hostile territory, but the situation was unpredictable. He made sure they had safe routes out of the palace if needed, and maintained contact with Earth's military forces in case of emergency. Mumji helped Aaron prepare emotionally. You are not the same person who left Valyria, she reminded Aaron during a quiet moment. You were lost then. Now you know who you are. Remember that when you face your mother. As their ship approached Valyria's orbit, Aaron felt her anxiety growing. She looked out the window at her home planet, its surface covered in crystalline cities that sparkled in the light of 3 suns. It was beautiful and cold, just like the people who lived there. Are you ready? Tammin asked, standing beside her with Sarah in his arms. Aaron straightened her shoulders. No, but we are doing this anyway. They landed at the royal spaceport. Aaron had expected a private arrival, but instead she found hundreds of Valyrians gathered. News of the infertile princess returning with a hybrid child had spread across the planet. Everyone wanted to see the impossible made real. The royal family stood at the forefront. Empress Kalira wore formal ceremonial robes, her crystalline skin glowing with barely contained anger. Aaron's sisters stood behind their mother, their faces showing various mixtures of shock, curiosity, and contempt. Aaron stepped off the ship carrying Sarah herself. She would not hide her daughter or let anyone else present her. This was her child, and she would show the world without shame. Tammin walked beside her with Hana, Jiwan, and Mimji following behind. The crowd's telepathic murmuring hit Aaron like a wave. Thoughts of disbelief, anger, fascination, and confusion swirled around her. But she kept walking forward, her head high until she stood before her mother. Empress Kira's eyes fixed on the baby. Sarah looked back at her with those color-shifting eyes, completely unafraid. The Empress's expression flickered with something that might have been surprise. So it is true, Kalira said coldly. My defective daughter managed to produce offspring with a human. Erin felt the old shame trying to rise inside her, but she pushed it down. I am not defective, mother. Your physicians were wrong. They measured me by Valyrian standards and found me wanting. But I am more than just Valyrian, and so is my daughter. She shifted Sarah slightly so the crowd could see her better. The baby skin patterns caught the light, creating beautiful effects. Her hybrid nature was obvious, but instead of appearing wrong or broken, she looked like something new and wonderful. I was cast aside as worthless, Erin continued, her voice carrying across the silent crowd. She opened her telepathic channels, broadcasting her thoughts so every Valyrian present could hear. I was given away as an insult, a joke to entertain your court. But I found something you never expected. I found love, dignity, and purpose. She looked at Tammin, who nodded encouragingly. Then she turned back to face the crowd, including her mother. This child is proof that your judgments were wrong. She is Valyrian and human. She carries the telepathic gifts of our people and the emotional depth of humanity. She is not an abomination. She is perfect. The crowd erupted in mixed reactions. Some telepathic voices expressed outrage, calling the baby unnatural, but others, especially younger Valyrians, projected curiosity and something that felt like hope. An elderly Valyrian pushed forward from the crowd. He wore the robes of a master physician, and his skin showed the deep purple of great age and wisdom. His name was Rael, and he had been studying hybrid species for decades. May I examine the child? He asked for. Erin hesitated, but Hannah nodded slightly. They had discussed this possibility. Scientific examination could help their case if done by someone respected. Rael approached carefully and ran his scanner over Sarah. His eyes widened as he read the results. He turned to address the Empress directly. Your Majesty, this child is medically remarkable. She possesses fully developed telepathic nodes alongside human neural structures. But there is more. He looked at the crowd. I have been researching cases like Princess Arin's for years. What we call infertility is often not true infertility. It is incompatibility with Valyrian reproductive requirements. He pulled up data on his scanner for all to see. I have identified 47 other Valyrians diagnosed as infertile who may actually be capable of bearing children through hybrid reproduction or alternative methods. We have been measuring by outdated standards, and we have been wrong. This revelation sent shockwaves through the crowd. 47 Valyrians. 47 people told they were broken who might not be. 47 families denied children because of incorrect assumptions. A young Valyrian woman stepped forward from the crowd. Her skin showed the pale blue of minor nobility. I was declared infertile 3 years ago, she said, her telepathic voice trembling. Are you saying there might be hope for me? Before Rael could answer, another Valyrian spoke up, then another. More people sharing their stories, their pain, their questions. The crowd's mood was shifting from hostility to something more complex. Empress Kalira raised her hand for silence. This is highly irregular. The court will need time to review these claims and decide on proper protocols. But Erin was not finished. She stepped closer to her mother, close enough that only Kaylee could hear her words. You threw me away because I could not serve your purposes, Erin said quietly but firmly. You measured my worth by my ability to continue a bloodline. But worth is not determined by what we can do for others. It is inherent. I am valuable because I exist. And so is my daughter. She held Sarah up between them. This is your granddaughter. She carries your blood along with human genes. You can reject her, reject me, and cling to your old ways. Or you can accept that the world is changing, and we must change with it. For a long moment, Empress Kalira stared at the baby. Sarah reached out with one tiny hand, and without thinking, the Empress extended her finger. The baby grasped it with surprising strength. In that contact, Kalira felt a telepathic connection form, weak but real. The baby's mind was there, alive and aware. The Empress's icy expression cracked just slightly. She looked from the baby to her daughter, seeing Erin truly for perhaps the first time in years. The council will meet to discuss this matter, Kalira announced to the crowd. There will be a formal inquiry into these medical findings and the legal status of hybrid offspring. It was not acceptance, but it was not rejection either. It was the beginning of possibility. The Valyrian High Council met for 3 days straight. something that had not happened in over a century. Representatives from every major family attended, along with medical experts, legal scholars, and diplomatic advisors. The chamber buzzed with both spoken words and telepathic debate. Erin was not allowed in the main chamber during deliberations, but she could sense the emotional turmoil from outside. Fear, anger, excitement, hope. All of it swirled together in the telepathic currents that flowed through the palace. She spent those 3 days in a guest quarter with Tammin, Sarah, and their friends. They received regular updates from sympathetic council members who believed change was necessary. The situation was more complex than anyone had anticipated. The conservative faction wanted Sarah taken for study, and Erin stripped of all remaining titles. They argued that hybrid reproduction violated the purity of Valyrian bloodlines and threatened their telepathic heritage. But their position was weakening. Rael's research had sparked a movement. The 47 Valyrians he identified as potentially fertile had come forward publicly. Their families, who had mourned the loss of future generations, now demanded answers. Why had they been told there was no hope when alternatives existed? More importantly, young Valyrians were embracing the idea of change. They looked at Sarah not as a threat, but as a bridge to new possibilities. A generation raised on strict traditions suddenly saw a path to something different. On the third night, Empress Kalera requested a private meeting with Erin. No advisors, no council members, just mother and daughter. Tammin stayed with Sarah, while Erin went to her mother's private chambers. The Empress stood by a window overlooking the crystal gardens. Her posture was rigid, but Erin could sense the conflict in her telepathic signature. Kalera gestured for Erin to sit, then joined her. "Your father would have been proud of you," Kalera said quietly. Erin was stunned. Her father had died when she was young, and her mother rarely spoke of him. "What do you mean?" "He always believed our people were too rigid," Kalera continued. "He wanted reforms, wanted us to open ourselves to other species and new ideas. I called him a dreamer and ignored his advice. After he died, I became even more traditional, thinking that preserving the old ways would honor him. I was wrong." She turned to face Erin directly. "I was wrong about many things. I was wrong to measure your worth by one standard. I was wrong to give you away like you meant nothing. And I was wrong to think that keeping our bloodlines pure was more important than our survival." Tears formed in Erin's eyes. She had never heard her mother admit fault about anything. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because I held my granddaughter," Kalera said, her voice breaking slightly. "Because I felt her mind touch mine, and I realized what I had almost destroyed by clinging to outdated beliefs. That child is remarkable, Erin, and you are remarkable for bringing her into this world, despite everything I did to break your spirit." The Empress reached out and took Erin's hand, a gesture of affection that Erin could not remember receiving since childhood. "I cannot undo the past, but I can change the future if you will let me." The next morning, the High Council reconvened for final statements. Empress Kira stood before them, her presence commanding attention. "The Council has heard many arguments over these past days," she began. "Arguments about tradition, about genetic purity, about the proper order of things. But we have missed the most important point. We are dying." She let that statement hang in the air. "Our population declines every generation. We cast aside our own people for failing to meet impossible standards. We close ourselves off from the galaxy and call it strength. But it is not strength. It is fear." Kalera gestured, and an image of Sarah appeared for all to see. This child represents possibility. She is healthy, strong, and carries the best of two species. There may be more like her if we open ourselves to change, but more than that, she represents a truth we have forgotten, that our worth is not determined by our genetics alone, but by our capacity to love, to adapt, and to grow. The conservative faction tried to protest, but Kira silenced them with a raised hand. "I am not saying we abandon our culture or our gifts. I am saying we stop using them as weapons against our own people. The Council will implement new medical standards. We will research hybrid compatibility, and we will no longer exile or shame those who do not fit our narrow definitions." She looked directly at where Erin stood holding Sarah. "Princess Erin will not have her titles fully restored because she no longer needs them. Instead, she and her family will serve as ambassadors, living between Earth and Valyria. They will help bridge our worlds and show both species what cooperation can achieve." The vote was not unanimous, but it was decisive. The reforms passed. More importantly, the cultural conversation had shifted. Young Valyrians began questioning other traditions. Families reached out to relatives who had been cast aside. Scientists started researching new possibilities. Change happened slowly, but it happened. 6 months later, Aaron stood in a specially designed embassy that existed between Earth's diplomatic station and Valyrian space. The building incorporated both human and Valyrian architectural styles, creating something beautiful and new. Tammin worked at his desk while Sarah played on a mat nearby. The baby was growing quickly, already showing signs of intelligence beyond her age. She could project simple telepathic emotions and was learning to speak both Korean and Valyrian. Hana visited regularly to continue her research. Jiwon had been assigned as head of embassy security. Mai ran cultural exchange programs, teaching humans about Valyrian art and Valyrians about human creativity. The work was not easy. Prejudices ran deep on both sides. There were still Valyrians who saw hybrid children as abominations, and humans who distrusted telepathic species. But slowly understanding grew. Erin had learned something important through her journey. Change did not happen because of grand declarations or sudden revelations. It happened through small acts of courage, through people choosing love over fear, through individuals refusing to accept that the way things were was the way they had to be. She picked up Sarah, who giggled and touched her mother's face with both hands. The baby's eyes shifted from blue to gold, reflecting her happiness. Aaron looked at Tammin, who smiled at them both. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "I am thinking about how strange life is," Aaron said. "A year ago, I was the discarded princess given away as a joke. Now I am a mother, an ambassador, and somehow part of changing an entire culture's way of thinking." Tammin stood and wrapped his arms around both of them. "You were always strong enough to do this. You just needed the chance to discover it." Aaron leaned into his embrace, feeling sorrow wiggle between them. She thought about the court members who had laughed when she was given to Tammin. She wondered what they thought now. Seeing her happy and successful, seeing their society beginning to transform, she had been given away as nothing worth less than the political embarrassment she caused. But she had returned as everything. A mother, a bridge between worlds, and living proof that worth could not be determined by others. It came from within, from the choices made, and the love given. Outside the embassy windows, Earth and Valyria hung in space, separate but connected. Two worlds that had once seen each other as strange, now worked to understand each other. It was not perfect, and it never would be, but it was better, and better was enough. Sarah reached up and touched her mother's face again, her small hand warm against crystalline skin. In that touch was everything: past, present, and future, pain and joy, loss and discovery. Aaron kissed her daughter's forehead and whispered, "You are loved, not for what you represent, but for who you are. Always remember that." In her arms, the child who should never have existed smiled, and her eyes shone with the light of stars from two different worlds.